So the original iPhone SE form factor was one of my favorite ones of all time because it adopted what the iPhone 5 and 5S were, and Apple has tried to give us kind of like a low budget iPhone since the iPhone 5C, if you guys remember that playful atrocity, but now we're kind of getting to the point where the iPhone SE 4 should be around the corner because we had the original iPhone SE, then the SE 2 and 3 looked identical, and now Apple should be giving us an iPhone SE 4 in 2024, and this is everything that we know about that iPhone because it should be a doozy. Let's get into it. So the current iPhone SE 3 retails directly from Apple for $429 for the 64GB model, and you get 3 different options, which is that black colorway, the white colorway, and then also their product red colorway, which is probably one of my favorites. And you can spec it up to 128 or even 256 gigs of storage, and this iPhone pretty much checks off all the boxes that anybody that isn't really a techie or anybody that just wants an iPhone to work and kind of be in the iOS ecosystem, iPhone ecosystem, but not really spend, iPhone 15 or even iPhone 14 or 13 money. Because for $429, the sell is that you can get into the Apple ecosystem and get pretty much 90% of the features that you would get from maybe a brand new iPhone for less than half the price. Now, the current iPhone SE does still have that iPhone 6 and iPhone 7 form factor. It has a 4.7-inch display, it has a home button, it has one camera lens on the back, which is that 12-megapixel shooter from the previous iPhone, so for all intents and purposes, it still works extremely well. It has an A15 chip built in there, so it's the same chipset that's only about 2 years old now at this point. So the iPhone SE 3 actually released in March of 2022, and then the iPhone SE 2 released in April of 2020, I believe. And the actual iPhone SE, the original one, which actually had the iPhone 5 and a 5S form factor, released all the way back in 2016. So Apple is due to give us a new iPhone SE 4, but there is a good chance that Apple completely changes the form factor of the iPhone SE lineup. So in terms of what to expect from an iPhone SE 4, it's actually going to be totally revamped because Apple actually needs to get rid of the Lightning-enabled iPhone S3. So first thing we're going to notice is that USB-C will be coming around to the iPhone SE 4, and by USB-C I don't mean the new faster Thunderbolt USB-C that we get with the 15 Pro and Pro Max. It is a slower 2.0 port that we're getting with the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus, which for most people is going to be more than enough for wired charging, and as well as some small data transfer when it comes to connecting to a USB-C port or a USB-C dongle. And then also Apple is going to forego the home button completely, and I think that's going to be the last Touch ID iPhone that we're going to have that can be brand new and purchased directly from Apple. Maybe Apple will give us a under-display Touch ID kind of technology moving forward or at some point in the future, but now that Touch ID should be totally gone from the iPhone lineup after the iPhone SE 4 is finally released, so we will be going to Face ID for the iPhone SE 4. Try to say iPhone SE 4 5 times fast, it's a tough one. And then Apple's going to go from a 4.7-inch display, which is what we have on an iPhone SE 3, to the 6.1-inch display that we see in most iPhone 15 and 14 models. People thought that maybe the iPhone mini form factor would come back for this iPhone SE 4, but it looks like we will be getting the 6.1-inch display instead of a 5.4-inch display because people at the end of the day want larger displays because more and more people are using their iPhones as their only form of content consumption, and having a larger display just makes it easier to consume that content. Now this might make it seem like Apple will be using an iPhone XR body because that kind of makes sense. They want to use just one camera on the rear, they want to still have Face ID on there and still kind of have that form factor with the notch, but Apple seems to be going with the iPhone 12 form factor and newer, so it's going to be a very industrial design, it's going to be kind of cut off edges, and maybe even an iPhone 15 type of form factor with the rounded off edges as well. So picture an iPhone SE with Face ID with a notch, so I don't believe it's going to have the dynamic island, it's going to be with a notch. It's only going to have one camera lens on the back instead of a dual camera sensor, so that's also going to help cut costs as well as cut weight on the iPhone itself. And we're probably going to get a 48 megapixel camera or 48 megapixel shooter on the rear. There's going to be something that's going to be dimmed down. Maybe the feature set and the hardware isn't going to be as nice as the iPhone 15 models because depending on how they price this thing should be about half the price of the iPhone 15. And then outside of that, we will be getting an A16 chip most likely in there, maybe even an A17 depending on when this releases. But for the most part, I believe that this is going to be a great value add to the lineup. And a lot of people might gravitate towards this because it's going to look so similar to the iPhone 15 that's currently being sold. I believe it's $799. So as I mentioned, this all sounds almost too good to be true, right? We're going to get a brand new iPhone with USB-C that has kind of the same design language as a brand new iPhone. It's going to have a 6.1 display, which is definitely going to be an IPS 60 Hz panel, very, very dimmed down. Maybe the nits of brightness aren't going to be getting as high as what we get with the 15 Plus and the 15 and the 15 Pro, but it's going to be more than good enough to be able to see stuff indoors and most likely see a good amount of stuff outdoors in direct sunlight. But again, we're going to be getting probably 95% of the way there from a look standpoint, from a form factor standpoint, from a look and feel standpoint. So I'm excited to see what Apple does with an iPhone SE 4 because a lot of people will gravitate towards this. I can see this being a big phone for middle schoolers and high schoolers, or maybe people's first phones getting into the iOS ecosystem. I'm a big fan of Apple bringing a lower price point to a more modern looking iPhone SE. And now the question is going to be, how much will this new iPhone SE cost? Because we are getting a nice amount of hardware upgrades, but I bet you the materials are going to be relatively cheap compared to the titanium, of course, and the aluminum that Apple currently uses, and the glass back. Maybe Apple removes things like wireless charging, so that's not going to be something that's going to be in there, and then maybe they get rid of the IP rating. So I think this phone is going to be $499, which I think is still a great price for an entry-level iPhone. As I stated right now, currently the iPhone SE3 is $429 directly from Apple. Carrier deals have you getting this for absolutely free, maybe even $100, things like that. So $499 for an iPhone SE4 that maybe has 128 gigs of storage to start off with, or maybe they do keep it at 64 gigs to keep that price point lower and also have people want to upgrade to the iPhone 15 instead of the iPhone SE4. Apple is going to have to play some kind of mental consumer gymnastics as well, because if you do sell an iPhone that's 95% of the look, the feel, the actual usability and functionality at maybe half the price of a new iPhone 15, they might cannibalize their own sales. But let's see how Apple markets this, especially here in America. Maybe overseas they'll market this as kind of the iPhone to get, but here in America they're probably going to still market the iPhone 15 as the iPhone to get. But let's see what they do. And then in terms of release date, I do believe we're going to be getting it in late 2024, probably right before or even right after the iPhone 16 releases, probably the fall of 2024. But let me know in the comment down below. Are you guys excited for a new iPhone SE? Have you guys been waiting for an iPhone SE4? The iPhone SE3 form factor is Apple's best-selling form factor of all time, right? That's the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 7. I believe combined they sold over 400 million units in a span of 2 years. So Apple decided to keep that form factor for the SE3, and now to finally get rid of it and say goodbye to it, it's going to be a little bit nostalgic in my book. But let me know in the comment down below what you think. Are you excited for a new iPhone SE? Do you think Apple's going to even bring us an iPhone SE4? I definitely think it's going to be happening. It's just a matter of when and how much it's going to be. But if you made it to the end, leave a little dolphin in the comments down below so I know you made it to the end. And definitely stay subscribed because we have some more content coming here as we round off the end of the year. Leave some video ideas down below as maybe a final video that we can kind of put out. Maybe 9 to 5 favorite tech of the year. That could be a great video to end off on. But if you guys want to watch more macOS, iPadOS, or iOS content, click on one of these videos right here. And until next time, I'm Fernando, and I'm out of here, everybody. Peace.